Hello and welcome to The Search. I'm YHWH. In this lesson, we're going to examine Psalms 96 and 100, and the title of our lesson is Yahweh Reigns Over All. We've been examining in the last several lessons Psalms 93 through 99, which constitute one of the most interesting sub-collections of psalms within the Psalter. They all express some variation of the theme, Yahweh reigns. Psalm 93 opens, Yahweh reigns, he is robed in majesty. Yahweh is robed in majesty and armed with strength. Indeed, the world is established firm and secure. Psalm 96 verse 10 says, Say among the nations, Yahweh reigns. The world is firmly established, it cannot be moved. He will judge the peoples with equity. Psalm 97 opens, Yahweh reigns, let the earth be glad, let the distant shores rejoice. And likewise, Psalm 99 says, Yahweh reigns, let the nations tremble. He sits enthroned between the cherubim, let the earth shake. Verse 1. Not only does Yahweh reign over the restored nation of Israel, who have finally come back to their land after the Babylonian exile, Psalms 93 through 99 also assert God's rule over all, including creation and the Gentile nations. Psalms 93 through 99 are a mixture of praise, royal, and coronation psalms, and there's evidence that they've been arranged in a chiastic structure. Psalms 93 and 99 forming the outer bounds of this parallelism, leading all the way up to the very heart of this collection, Psalm 96. Psalm 96 is at the center, and appropriately so, because Psalm 96 actually incorporates themes and verbiage from each of the other Yahweh reigns psalms. Let's take a look at how that works. For example, the first psalm in this collection says, Yahweh reigns, indeed the world is established firm and secure. And in our psalm, Psalm 96 verse 10 says, Say among the nations, Yahweh reigns, the world is firmly established, it cannot be moved. In Psalm 99, remember that's the last of the collection, which parallels Psalm 93, Yahweh is exalted over all the nations. Well, Psalm 96 says something similar, declare Yahweh's glory among the nations. Then we move into the next slot, Psalms 94 and 98. Psalm 94 verse 15 says, Judgment will again be founded on righteousness. And our psalm today says, He will judge the world in righteousness. Psalm 96 verse 13. In Psalm 98, we're told, Sing to Yahweh a new song. And in Psalm 96, we're told, Sing to Yahweh a new song, both of those occurring in the first verse of the Psalms, respectively. Then we get to the innermost section, which parallels each other right outside of Psalm 96, and that's 95 and 97. In Psalm 95, it says, For Yahweh is the great God, the great King above all gods. The sea is His, for He made it, and His hands formed the dry land. So we see Yahweh being set apart above all the other gods because He is the Creator. Well, Psalm 96 says the same thing. For great is Yahweh and most worthy of praise. He is to be feared above all gods. For all the gods of the nations are idols, but Yahweh made the heavens. And then in Psalm 97 and verse 6, we're told the heavens proclaim His righteousness. And in Psalm 96 and verse 11, let the heavens rejoice. So this is very interesting. We see that much of the content that's found in Psalm 96 is replicated in one way or another in these surrounding psalms. However, there is one part of Psalm 96 that is unique among this collection. However, it's not unique among all of the psalms. In Psalm 96, verses 7 through 9, we find a section that is strikingly similar to something that David wrote way back in Psalm 29. We read the first two verses of Psalm 29. Ascribe to Yahweh, you heavenly beings. Ascribe to Yahweh glory and strength. Ascribe to Yahweh the glory due His name. Worship Yahweh in the splendor of His holiness. Now this psalm, Psalm 29, is a hymn of praise. But rather than being directed to a human audience gathered, for example, at the temple, Psalm 29 summons all those heavenly attendants who surround God's throne to offer Him praise. And these words are repurposed in Psalm 96, but aimed at a new group of people. Ascribe to Yahweh, all you families of nations. Ascribe to Yahweh glory and strength. Ascribe to Yahweh the glory due His name. Bring an offering and come into His courts. Worship Yahweh in the splendor of his holiness. Tremble before him, all the earth. That's Psalm 96, verses 7 through 9. Now, the first change you might notice here is the target audience. In Psalm 29, it was the heavenly beings who were told to ascribe Yahweh glory and strength and so on and so forth. But here, it's the families of nations who are called upon to praise. Additionally, two lines have been added from Psalm 29. The first, bring an offering and come into his courts. That sets the temple worship context. And the second, tremble before him all the earth. Well, that's interesting. It sort of reaffirms the universal nature of Psalms 93 through 99. It's all the earth that is summoned to acknowledge God and to worship him. Now, the structure of our psalm is divided into three parts. Each part is a call. The first is a call to sing and recount God's greatness, verses 1 through 6. The second is a call to the peoples of the world, the nations, verses 7 through 10. And finally, a call to creation itself in verses 11 through 13. All right, let's dive into it now. Psalm 96, beginning in verse 1. Sing to Yahweh a new song. Sing to Yahweh all the earth. Sing to Yahweh, praise his name. Proclaim his salvation day after day. Declare his glory among the nations, his marvelous deeds among all peoples. For great is Yahweh and most worthy of praise. He is to be feared above all gods. For all the gods of the nations are idols, but Yahweh made the heavens. Splendor and majesty are before him. Strength and glory are in his sanctuary. Like many other praise hymns, including Psalms 95 and 97, Psalm 96 opens with both a call to praise that is then followed by a rationale for why Yahweh should be worshipped. All the earth, which the psalm will later reveal includes both humans and nature itself, all the earth is invited to sing this new song for what God has done. Now, based on this collection of psalms being located in the post-exilic context of Book 4 of the Psalter, the new song here is probably one dedicated to God for the return of the Jews to their land after their 70 grueling years in Babylon. Those who have returned and rebuilt the temple are told to declare God's glory and announce his marvelous deeds to the peoples and nations around them so that the whole earth will worship Yahweh. For, verse 3 begins, Yahweh is the one true creator. As the creator God, he outranks and overpowers all the idols and gods worshipped by the pagans. Mention here of his sanctuary is significant because not long ago, Asaph reported, they burned your sanctuary to the ground, they defiled the dwelling place of your name, Psalm 74 and verse 7. But now the people are back in Jerusalem and they are glorifying God once more in his holy place. We resume now our reading in verse 7. Ascribe to Yahweh all you families of nations. Ascribe to Yahweh glory and strength. Ascribe to Yahweh the glory due his name. Bring an offering and come into his courts. Worship Yahweh in the splendor of his holiness. Tremble before him all the nations. Say among the nations, Yahweh reigns. The world is firmly established. It cannot be moved. He will judge the peoples with equity. The opening summons to praise is likely primarily directed to Israel, because we're told in verse 3, declare his glory among the nations. Now, however, once the Gentile nations have learned about God's glory, especially in terms of his supremacy over the lesser gods, all the families of nations are directed to worship Yahweh. By using the word ascribe here in Psalm 96, we're not really just interested in the Gentiles offering a word of praise or saying something complimentary about Yahweh. As Grant says, this call is a summons to declare loyalty and commitment. Loyalty to God, of course, always starts with a recognition of who he is, an acknowledgement and confession of his glory and power. And once the nations have done that, once they've made that profession, they are invited to come to Yahweh by bringing an offering and entering his courts. The courts, of course, where Yahweh can be worshiped. These Gentiles who have come to know the true Creator God and have been invited into the temple to worship must not lose sight, though, of who they seek to honor. Tremble before him, all the earth, verse 9 says. This is a sobering reminder of the danger involved in coming into God's presence. We need only look at biblical examples like Nadab and Abihu to understand the truth of that sentiment. Verse 10 is the perfect encapsulation of this whole collection. I mean, we've been talking about Psalms 93 through 99 for several lessons now, and here is the message of these Psalms summed up in one verse. Say among the nations, Yahweh reigns. The world is firmly established. It cannot be moved. He will judge the peoples with equity. Tanner remarks, verse 10 brings the acclamation of Israel and the world, declaring Yahweh is king along with the dual understanding that it is God that secures the world and manages chaos, and that God will judge all the peoples fairly. The enthronement psalms are clear. Finally, once God's reign has been sufficiently proclaimed, it's time for the creation itself to join the worship of its maker. And for that, we look at verses 11 through 13. Let the heavens rejoice, let the earth be glad, let the sea resound and all that is in it. Let the fields be jubilant and everything in them. Let all the trees of the forest sing for joy. Let all creation rejoice before Yahweh. For he comes to judge the earth. He will judge the world in righteousness and the peoples in his faithfulness. Why is it that the skies, seas, fields, and trees all joyfully sing? Because Yahweh comes to judge the earth in righteousness. Now, I want us to remember something important. Sometimes when we think about judgment or the concept of justice, we think about it merely as punishing evildoers. And that's true enough. But in the Bible, God's righteous judgment is more. It's also about setting everything right. It's about new creation. It's the restoration of that which in the beginning God said was very good. God saw all that he had made and it was very good. Genesis 1:31. When the world God created is remade and set aright, then even the creation will sing songs of joy and praise. The Apostle Paul puts it like this. The creation looks forward to the day when it will join God's children in glorious freedom from death and decay. Romans 8, verse 21. Psalms 93 through 99 declare the reign of Yahweh as king of a renewed Israel and the ruler of the whole earth. He is the God who will set everything right, for he's the one who created it all in the first place. His rule will extend to the Gentile nations so that the whole world will come to know his glory and power and honor him for it. When the world is fixed, nature itself will worship Yahweh. Now, it is beautifully fitting then that following this collection, we find Psalm 100. Psalm 100 is a wonderful announcement of Yahweh's reign, and Psalm 100 also invites people to worship God, the God who rules the world. Psalm 100, a psalm for giving grateful praise. Verse 1. Shout for joy to Yahweh, all the earth. Worship Yahweh with gladness. Come before him with joyful songs. Know that Yahweh is God. It is he who made us, and we are his. We are his people, the sheep of his pasture. Enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him and praise his name. For Yahweh is good, and his love endures forever. His faithfulness continues through all generations. This is a wonderful, short little psalm, and I think it functions as a kind of postscript to our collection, Psalms 93 through 99. You can see clearly, of course, that it continues the theme of praise to Yahweh because of who he is. And while it's true that all the earth is mentioned here in the opening line, this little Thanksgiving hymn is really mostly about Israel because in verse 3 it says, we are his people, the sheep of his pasture. Now, why is it that Israel should shout, worship, enter God's presence, acknowledge him, and give him thanks? Really, the answer is clear, and it's all about verse 5. For Yahweh is good, and his love endures forever. His faithfulness continues through all generations. Just try to imagine what life was like for the Jewish people in this time period. I mean, after 70 grueling and hopeless years in Babylon, they've finally returned to their land. And the exile hasn't totally ended, of course, because they're still under foreign rule, but at least they can come to the temple and they can worship their God once more. They don't have a Davidic king on the throne, that's true, but they can still proclaim that Yahweh is their king, and indeed that he is the king of the entire universe. Psalm 100, however, takes this idea, I think, even a step further than that, because it reminds the people of God that Yahweh has made a sacred, unbreakable covenant. The words love and faithfulness are frequently paired together in covenantal contexts. But in the captivity, in those days in Babylon, there was a lot of doubt about God's love and faithfulness. I want us to go back a little ways to a psalm that particularly questioned this about God, Psalm 89. That's not that long ago. We're just in the 90s, and now Psalm 100. Psalm 89, which is the last psalm of Book 3 of the Psalter. Now, it opens quite magnificently. Verse 1, I will sing of Yahweh's great love. With my mouth, I will make your faithfulness known through all generations. You see, there's love and faithfulness paired together. I will declare that your love stands firm forever, that you have established your faithfulness in heaven itself. There it is again, love and faithfulness. You said, I have made a covenant with my chosen one. I have sworn to David, my servant. I will establish your line forever and make your throne firm through all generations. Now we have this beautiful proclamation of the enduring love and faithfulness of God and the remembrance of the covenant that he made to David, to the Davidic house, to the Davidic dynasty. And yet we keep reading in that psalm and we get to verses 38 and 39, where Ethan writes, but you, God, have rejected. You have spurned. You have been very angry with your anointed one. That's the king. You have renounced the covenant with your servant David and have defiled his crown in the dust. Now, this is how Book 3 of the Psalter closes. We find at the end of this psalm in verse 46, this ever-probing question. It says, how long, Yahweh, will you hide yourself forever? Now we get to Book 4, and it seems in Book 4, we're documenting the return of the Jews to their land, but there's still that lingering uncertainty about the monarchy. What's going to happen with the line of David? So we must understand that the return to the land is just the first phase of the larger restoration that God had in store. It's a kind of down payment on the promise of God's anointed king being enthroned in Jerusalem. But that down payment is still enough for the author of Psalm 100 to brush away all of Ethan's doubts from Psalm 89 and to reaffirm this important truth, maybe the most important truth in all the Psalter. Yahweh is good, and his love endures forever. His faithfulness continues through all generations. As Tanner writes, the Psalms of praise bear witness to Israel's fundamental conviction that the character of the Lord is the most trustworthy and most defining reality in the universe, and that the character of the Lord is best summed up. The Lord is good. His chesed, his unfailing love, endures forever. Yahweh reigns over all. And this is the best news imaginable, because the God who rules the universe is also a good, loving, and trustworthy God. A God who eventually would come to the earth and live as a man, who died, was buried, and rose the third day, a God who ascended back into heaven and now reigns as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And as Paul wrote, it is this God who will return one day. We look forward with hope to that wonderful day when the glory of our great God and Savior, Jesus, the anointed King, will be revealed. He gave his life to free us from every kind of sin, to cleanse us, and to make us his very own people, totally committed to doing good deeds. Titus 2, verses 13 and 14. And so all of us who belong to King Jesus, just like the audience of Psalm 100, we are invited to enter into his courts, to praise and worship him, and to be reminded of this truth: Jesus is good. His love endures forever. Thank you so much for joining me as we continue to work our way through the Psalter. Come back next time as we continue this journey together. God bless.